Hello there, and welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. My name is Tammy Tuckey, and it's good to see you. So, it's my favorite season, Oscar season, and almost exactly a year ago to the day, I was watching one of the 2024 Oscar nominated animated films, Memoir of a Snail. I laughed, I cried, I loved it, and I actually found my original post that I made a year ago, and I this is actually what I wrote. I wrote, "It's a film about grief, weirdness, loss, depression, love, hope, and snails." When Grace's family faces tragedy and she becomes separated from her twin brother, she seems to be thrown into a life that isn't too kind to her. Her passion for snails and kindness to others does shine through, and it makes you root for her to get a happy ending that she deserves. So let's watch the film's trailer before we welcome tonight's guest. This is Memoir of a Snail.
Dad used to say that childhood was like being drunk. Everyone remembers what you did, except you.
Ha! Good one, Dad.
But I remember everything. Right from the start. Our home. Happiness. Sadness. Perms.
Nice hairdo. Aha! Dickhead!
Love at first sight. And loss.
Life isn't about looking backwards, Gracie. It's about living forwards. Snails never go back over their trails. Set yourself free.
So tonight, I'd like to welcome Oscar winner and director Adam Elliot. Hey there, Adam, all the way from Australia. Woo!
Hello, Tammy, and hello, world.
Hello, because it's like I think it's 2 o'clock where you are, and that's why we're a little bit later tonight. We're 10 o'clock over here in Philly. So thank you so much for being on the show. You know, it was crazy because I wrote a letter to you a year ago, and your assistant wrote back and was like, first of all, Adam needs to take a break. It's Oscar season. After he's done, I'm like, I totally get it. So I waited a year to send another message, and I was so grateful you said yes to talk now. So thank you first from that.
Oh no, well, thank you, Tammy. You know, and I'm fully recharged. I think we had to do over 1,000 individual media requests, and whereas now I've got the wonderful benefit of hindsight. I feel at the time it was such a whirlwind, and we were being pulled in every direction and visited countries all over the world, and whereas now I'm back to normal.
Yeah, well, I can't even imagine the experience. But again, when I was doing my research, you had already been an Oscar winner before for a short animated film that you did, and you won against Disney, 2 Disney shorts, and Ice Age. And I was just watching the clip again today, and I'm like, this is so cool. Here you are in 2004, right?
Oh yeah, there I am. Yes, look at that wonderful red cravat I'm wearing. Oh gee, what a fashion
You look
statement that
fabulous.
was.
So tell me about that night, because I'm always fascinated when we have Oscar winners on the show, which is few and far in between. Because I'm a big Oscar fan, I just love hearing about the experience. So what was it like going to the first Oscars for you?
Well, sure. Look, as you mentioned, it was for a short film called Harvey Crumpet. We were certainly the underdogs. We were up against Disney, as you mentioned, Pixar, Fox Studios had a short. So it really was a David and Goliath scenario. And even my mother said we had no chance of winning. But look, I think in this instance, it really helped that we were stop motion, that we were Australian,
Mm.
and we were very different. And I think that aided us. And who knows, we might have got the sympathy vote, but Our story was the longest. It was a very adult story. It had challenging subject matter. So we I think it was our strength that we were we were seen as different. And going to the award ceremony was, of course, overwhelming. The building was littered with stars and icons, and here we were, two little Australian animators, my producer and I, thrown into the deep end, small, very, very small fish in a very large pond. But when we won, it really proved to me and cemented the idea that it's all about the story, and it's all about a good story well told. And of course, Disney and Pixar are the masters of storytelling. But I think that it's not about budgets and how much things cost to make and what style of animation. At the end of the day, the audience really care about is a good story well told.
For sure. And I think it's so interesting to me because your material, as you said, is more for an adult audience. So when people hear usually animated film or animated short, they usually assume it's for a younger audience. So as somebody who has never seen your projects before, I was a little thrown when I put on the film Memoir of a Snail because I didn't know anything going in. Because I didn't know it was R-rated. So I didn't do any of my homework before it, but I really loved it. And I'm like, to me, it just opened my mind and said, animated film does not need to just be for a younger audience. And I'm so glad that you decided that's really your thing with your project. So my first question was just going to be, what was the idea that came to you for this specific story? How did you pull that together?
Yes, well, all my films, all 7 of them, including all my shorts, are all based on real people. I mean, they're not documentaries, but they certainly are based on some form of truth. And for Memoir of the Snail, I wanted to tell the story about a friend of mine who was born with a severe cleft palate, and how as a child she was horribly bullied and teased, yet grew up to be a very confident, well-adjusted adult. But also, too, I've always been fascinated in people who hoard and collect things to the point where it becomes detrimental to their everyday living. And my father had just passed away, and he and my mother were collectors and had filled up their homes with all this stuff. So I was really fascinated into why, as human beings, we collect. And I'm a collector. I think a lot of us collect, particularly in animation. But what is the psychological reasoning behind all this? So I spoke to a lot of psychologists, and I discovered that extreme hoarders, we're talking about people who really fill their homes to the brim and are actually often quite ashamed of their hoard, are doing it as a way of coping with trauma and loss. So, like all my films, once I had these sort of kernel of ideas, the story started to snowball, and I did a lot of research and reading, and they, at the same time, I don't want the films to be too serious and too challenging, so I try and balance the seriousness and the darkness with a lot of comedy. So I always call my
Yes.
films comedy tragedies, and I think the aim with Memoir of a Snail was to emotionally exhaust the audience, so by the end of the
Oh,
film
yes.
they leave the cinema having laughed, but also hopefully having shed a tear or two.
I had to stop the movie because I was crying so hard. And that's not happened in a long time. I was like, so you're saying that you lost your father and that kind of played in part to you writing the story. I just lost my mother 2 months before I saw your movie. So I guess both of us were kind of coping. I'm coping watching your movie. You were coping making your movie through grief. So, and that's why I love that you had that theme that was strewn right through the film.
Yes, look, I think animation is a wonderful art form and vehicle for really dealing with subject matter that can often be difficult or challenging or upsetting. And and I love European animation because quite often a lot of European animation is often surrealist, absurdist. It's not scared of dealing with subject matter that might be more challenging. So I've always been drawn to that type of animation. But at the same time, you know, I've brought up on Disney and Warner Brothers, and I love a good laugh as well. So the challenge with every project is to get that duality of comedy, tragedy, humor, pathos. And one of my favorite quotes is, without the dark, the light has no meaning. So I really think you need that yin and yang, that balance of the two for a film to successfully work. And really, all I'm really doing is mirroring all our lives. I think all of us have suffered from loneliness. We've all lost somebody we care about. So, you know, it's a bit like a roller coaster, which is why I love having roller coasters in my film, because they are a great metaphor for the ups and downs and highs and lows that we all experience as human beings.
I also love how you mentioned you love putting in these jokes, and you just mentioned Warner Brothers. So who is your favorite Warner Brother character that you used to watch growing up? I gotta know.
Well, look, certainly love the wisecracking Bugs Bunny, but I think I was more drawn to Roadrunner and Coyote because it was that good, you know, the really obvious good versus evil, good, bad, and the poor old Coyote. I mean, you look back and they're quite violent. I don't think they'd be made today. But that visual humor I really loved as well. I mean, I've always loved the French filmmaker Jacques Tati, who, you know, really celebrated that visual humor. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and I think Roadrunner and Coyote really celebrate that wonderful. You know, we have a rule in filmmaking: show it, don't say it. If you can show it rather than say it in dialogue, then go for it. And I think, you know, the great thing about Coyote and Roadrunner is, you know, there's virtually no dialogue and they're all visual. And, you know, and that makes them universal. People in any country can relate to them and understand them. And they also have a timelessness too, which is something I'm always mindful of when I make my films. I want them to have a long shelf life and a longevity. So they're as meaningful and potent in 10 years' time as when we made them. So I think animation in general has that sensation that you know, I think Disney films are often as strong today as when they were first made many years ago. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite animated film, you know, not even counting Disney? Are you a fan of Hayao Miyazaki or anything from DreamWorks? Does anything really stick out to you from these past couple years that you just really loved and spoke to you?
Well, look, I think animation's in a very healthy state. You know, there's a lot of independent animation, as you mentioned last year at the Oscars. There was our film, which is indie, low budget, but also a wonderful Estonian film, which won the Oscar, called Flow, which very small
Yes.
budget, but beautiful, poetic. So I think animation's evolving. You know, it's no longer just for kids. Well, it never has been. You know, it's always been for everybody, but there's more diversity. And of course, we have AI, which is really changing things. But really, it all comes back to the story, and whether your film is animated with plasticine like mine or drawn with charcoal, 2D, 3D, it is all about the story. And I think my favorite feature animated film of all time. Oh, I do love the Czech Republic animator Jan Švankmajer. He made a wonderful version of his interpretation of Alice in Wonderland called Alice, very surrealist. But at the same time, look, I'm a big
Ooh.
Wallace and Gromit fan. I love Chicken Run.
Yep.
I really
Yeah.
love Curse of the Were Rabbit. But yeah, look, my tastes are always changing. I also watch a lot of documentaries too. I'm a big live action fan, so I think I'm just drawn to stories that are unique, original, and you know, I think we all get a bit tired of seeing the same types of stories and characters, and so I'm always drawn to stuff that has a real original bent to it. Yeah.
I love that. What you mentioned Chicken Run. I think that's the first stop motion animated type of film I've ever seen with the claymation and things like that. So, and I haven't watched Wallace and Gromit in so long. So this is like the first time I've seen something like this. I want to show a behind the scenes clip because I think this is important to show the hard work that goes into these films, especially what you made. So let's take a look here for the audience to see.
It's our feature stop motion animation studio. As you can see from our storyboard, we're almost to the end of the shoot. We've been going for almost 30 weeks. This film is 100% in camera. There's not one single frame of CGI, so every prop, set and character is something that you could hold in your hand. And this film, like all my other films, is for adults, and it's the tale of a very lonely woman living in Canberra in the 1970s who hoards ornamental snails.
Where do you find the patience, Adam? I can't even imagine. How do you find the, like, even if you mess up once, like, what do you do? I can't. I just throw everything away. I'd be like, nope, I'm done.
Well, that's a great question, Tammy, because, you know, weirdly and ironically, I'm actually a very impatient person, and these days I no longer animate. I have my wonderful minions, as I call them, and we have hundreds of people working on the film. We have people who just make arms and eyeballs, and another group of people who are making the sets and the props. So those people are really the you know, the geniuses behind all this, because they're the ones who do have patience, and of course the animators who are in the dark for 8 to 10 hours a day, moving these characters one frame at a time, and they might only do, you know, 2 to 3 seconds per day. So they take an extremely long time to make. I mean, all animation, as you know, is slow to make, but stop motion is particularly slow. And yes, everything is handmade. And I've got a little surprise for you. I've got this is Grace.
I'm going to zoom in on
She's
you.
actually, well, her head anyway, but she's one of the actual puppets. I think we had about 12 different Graces, but again, it proves that everything's handmade, and her little eyeballs are magnetic, so we can move them around. And that's
my
how
goodness.
we get her. Yeah. So, and just those little black pupils, somebody had to make those. There were hundreds and hundreds of those little eyeballs made for the film. So I think we had over 5,000 to 7,000 things had to be made. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How many characters were in the film that had to be created, would you say?
Yeah, well, look, I think including all the animals, everything from a dog to a butterfly to a snail, of course, as well. I think there was about 200 characters. We had 200 locations, all the houses, exteriors, interiors. We had to build a whole amusement park, a whole roller coaster. I think there were 200 of those sets. So you know, we filled a warehouse full of stuff, and here in Melbourne, Australia, a lot of it now is on permanent exhibition at one of our museums here. So a lot of things had to be handmade, and yeah, it's a shame. A lot of it falls apart and disintegrates, and the plasticine, which is what we use for the mouths, it dries up and starts to crack. So sadly, none of these things really last terribly long, but the wonderful thing is that we've captured it all on film, and it's there forever preserved digitally. In the old days, of course, it'll be on celluloid, but now we have everything preserved forever, which is great, you know. But the poor characters themselves slowly disintegrate.
They deteriorate. Yeah. What museum is it at in Australia?
Well, we're very lucky here in Melbourne. We have the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, which really is was built in the same sort of way that the MoMI in New York, the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, I think it is, in New York. So it celebrates all things moving image with an Australian flavour. So it celebrates films like, you know, Mad Max and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Muriel's Wedding, Crocodile Dundee, you know. So it exhibits a lot of the props and sets from those films, but also educates the audiences as to how we make these films. So we're very lucky here in Melbourne that we have one of these museums.
That's wonderful. A friend of mine is going to Australia soon, so I might have to convince them to go and see this in person. I would love to see it. I love anything, especially when you see it up close and personal. I love that. I love it. And, you know, we actually have some people in the audience who are asking questions. Well, Stream Technology says movable eyes. That's really smart. That saves time, I'm sure, right?
Oh yes, look, we use a lot of magnets. Magnets are our friend. You know, often the characters' arms are held together with magnets, and you know, we do all sorts of tricks and illusions. And I often say, you know, we're more like magicians than we are filmmakers, because everything we're doing is to create an illusion, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of smoke and mirrors and trickery. So we have lots of tricks up our sleeves to convince the audience that these little blobs of clay are real, and that's a big
Mhm.
challenge. The audience has to suspend their disbelief and believe for an hour and a half that these little characters are real. And that's tricky because at the end of the day, they're blobs of clay.
Well, Shino says, how do you feel about your own film? That's an interesting question.
Well, it's funny. I don't
Hmm.
have children, but I do see my films as my children in a way, and of course, you're very nervous when they're being made as to whether when they go out into the world, will people be kind to them? Will they be
Mhm.
accepted? Will they be liked? And I think once the film's out there and it is being well appreciated, then you become very proud, like a proud father or mother. I certainly don't have a favorite. I think, like all my children, there's things I'd like to change about them. Sadly, when a film's finished, it's set in stone, and you can't go back and change things, or you can, but it's very, very, very expensive. And you just have to accept. You have to accept them, warts and all, for all their imperfections. And I think every filmmaker
Mhm.
has to go through that experience. And I love that expression. You never finish your film, you really just abandon it. There's always something you'd like to fix or change or improve.
I think I remember Steven Spielberg saying sometimes you just got to release it, release it into the
Yes,
wild and see what happens. And
absolutely.
so,
Yeah, you lose control once it's done. Yeah.
so when you go back to the Oscars this past year, again, you're already an Oscar winner. You're kind of walking in. I'm sure you're excited that you're nominated again. Um, do you remember any encounters with anybody specifically that you were surprised that actually came up to you and actually saw the film? Because you hear about movie stars not watching all of these movies, but did anybody surprise you?
Well, look, this time around, because we had a feature rather than a short, we had a lot more exposure, and a lot more of the Academy members had seen the film. Back in the old days, you would watch screeners on DVD, whereas now it all comes through an Academy app.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was really wonderful because we met people like Harrison Ford and Angelina Jolie, and they'd all seen the film, and they'd really liked it. And of course, they're not allowed to tell you if they're voted. And I'm also a member of the Academy, so I also vote as well in all the categories. But I think as an Australian too, I think we always worry here in Australia that we're not understood and that people find our accent very peculiar. And we are so geographically so far away from the rest of the world that I think we've
Mhm.
developed an inferiority complex. And of course, we love
Aw.
America. We watch all your cinema or your TV. And so when we come to America, we're very nervous. What will an American think of us? And so it was very validating to have so much love for the film, and of course, just being nominated for us was a wonderful accolade and experience. And having already won an Oscar all those years ago, it really does change your life. And the Academy Awards get a lot of criticism, but they really do um, help, particularly independent filmmakers. The fact that they even telecast the shorts categories is a wonderful statement. It says without shorts,
Mhm.
you don't get features. And they really are about caring for emerging filmmakers and the craft. They celebrate cinematographers and makeup artists and the editor,
Mhm.
so it's really, I think the Academy Awards are so vital and important to recognizing all these wonderful artists behind the scenes who bring cinema to life. Yeah.
And spreading the word, because our local nonprofit theaters, now they get the chance to show all of the live short films, all the live short documentaries, and then all the live short animated films, and you get to sit and watch all of them. And I love it
Hmm.
because I think last year I enjoyed more of the shorts than I did the long films, to be quite honest. So aside from yours, but and it's just a new world that they're actually giving more opportunity for us to see, the more of the public to see and identify and recognize. So I love that. Did they do that in Australia at all, or are you guys not really big Oscar people?
Oh no, we love the Oscars. You know, for us, it's in the middle of the day when it's telecast, and but no, you know,
Nice.
shorts are very celebrated here. We have lots of short film festivals. Melbourne and Sydney have very large international film festivals. So cinema is, you know, is certainly well supported here. Like the rest of the world, you know, we now have to compete with the streaming platforms and social media. So, you know, it is harder and harder to convince people to leave their lounge rooms and go to the local cinema. But I think I've really noticed, you know, traveling around the world in the last 18 months with my new film, talking to audiences at Q&A events, like, you know, like what we're doing now, I've really discovered that there's this whole generation of young people who are going back to the cinema because they're realizing that to watch a film with a group of people really enhances the experience, particularly a comedy. You know, humor is infectious, and watching a comedy with a bunch of people just makes the film funnier. You know, you're sitting in the dark, it's a communal experience. And even though we have more competition from other entertainment art forms, you know, going to the cinema is sort of making a comeback in a way. And these little local cinemas, cinematheques, local town halls, any sort of venue that shows big films on the big screen is really helping us filmmakers, because as filmmakers, we want our films to be seen on the big screen. We don't want people to watch them on a phone or a tablet. And also the sound, of course, in the cinema, you're getting that wonderful surround sound, and it really does make the film more enhanced. And I think it leaves the audience feeling more fulfilled and satisfied.
That's why when people are like, you're going back to the movies to see these Best Picture nominees on the big screen, I said, well, I haven't seen them, and I'd prefer to watch them. I don't care if it's $7. I'll take it. I'll go and I'll see it, because I think it's only fair too. Because we have something called the Fantasy Oscars pool online, so everybody's playing against everybody. So I want to watch everything, and if I can, on the big screen. So I'm so glad you kind of advocate for that. And obviously you can't tell us who you're rooting for this year because you're voting, but are you excited to see Conan come back and host?
Oh, look, Conan was great last year, and I've been very lucky with my 2 visits to the Oscars. I was very lucky the first time around seeing Billy Crystal on stage, and I got to meet him afterwards. And Conan last year, I think he certainly was a great success as a host. Yeah, it's great that he's come back as well.
So are you going to be at a party? Or are you going to be at home with some popcorn watching the Oscars? What are you doing for the Oscars?
Well, actually, again, here in Melbourne, it's a big thing. And for the last 30 years, I've been going to our local cinema, who have a live telecast of the Oscars. And we all, you know, you can have a glass of wine and watch the live telecast on the big screen. And there's show bags at the end. There's a raffle, and you know, there's all sorts of little lovely little add-ons to make the day more special. So I'll be going there. I've only missed it twice, and I've always apologized that I've missed it, only because I've been at the Academy Awards.
I'm sure they were literally
year,
screaming for you when they heard your name announced the first time, and they're like, you're going back? Go, man, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, back in 2004, when we won, one of my friends took in a little audio recording device. Again, this is before digital phones and everything. And she recorded the sound and made me listen to it after we got back from Hollywood. And it really, I think that was the moment I really got emotional, because I could hear the audience's joy when we won, and the room just went into this thunderous, chaotic applause. And my mum and dad were there. They were sitting with the narrator of the film, Geoffrey Rush, who had won an Oscar himself many years ago for Best Actor for the film Shine. So it was a very special day for everyone who was involved. And of course, here in Australia, our films are funded and supported by our government. We follow a very European model. So unlike America, we don't have big studios. So here films are financed through government agencies. And so
Wow.
the government were very happy that all the money they'd put into both my films has made them a return. So we're very lucky we
A
have
big
government
return.
support. Yeah. Yes, yes. So yeah, it was a
That's
great day.
wonderful. So you said you're currently doing a press for which film? Apologies, because I don't know.
Oh
Or
yes,
is it?
no, I'm still just finishing up with various Q and A's with Memoir of a Snail. But while this has
Oh,
all
okay.
been simmering down, I've actually spent the last 12 months writing. So I've been writing while I've been traveling. But I've just finished the new script and screenplay for my next feature film. So yeah, this year will be about financing it. We'll start making it next year. So it'll probably be ready around 2028, 2029. So don't hold your breath, but good
We've got
things
to be
take time,
patient,
as my mum
Adam.
says.
We just got to be really patient, Adam. We will be patient. And I really want to thank you for being on the show. But when that film comes out, you are more than welcome to come back. I want to see it. I want to talk about it. I know it's going to be nominated. So I know we'll be talking again soon, if in a couple years. But thank you so much for being on the show. Do you want to list anything like social media or websites that people can find you, or anything, any of your material?
Sure. Well, look, the other thing I love doing is more of a hobby than anything is I draw and I design all the characters to the films, and they all start off as drawings. And so my personal website's where you can see my drawings, and Instagram, of course, you can follow me there. But the next couple of years I'll be locked away in the dark with my fellow artists and producers and all the big crew that we need. So I won't be doing much drawing in the next 2 or 3 years, but yeah, certainly, and also too, all my films are available on all the various streaming platforms and iTunes and Apple TV and all those normal ways you can see the film. So if you haven't seen the film, you can definitely Google it and you'll find ways of seeing it.
Everybody, please watch Memoir of a Snail. It's a wonderful film, and your first Oscar film about with Harvey. Well, I'm blanking on the last name. Oh my gosh, Harvey
Oh,
Crumpet. Sorry,
Harvey
there you go. I
Crumpet.
remember
Crumpet with a K, which is, of course,
with a K.
it's a British, a crumpet, of course, is a wonderful British pastry that we eat in Australia. We love to eat. But yes, a Harvey Crumpet, narrated by Jeffrey Rush. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Before we end, we have a Kodak moment, which is we just take a picture together. So go ahead and smile at the camera on the count of
All
three.
right, I'll
We
get
will
little
take
Gracie
our
with.
picture. Oh, perfect. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Perfect. Oh gosh. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I really truly love the film. And I'm so glad we had people watching tonight too. So thank you to everybody who's been watching. If you like these interviews and reunions, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Click that little bell icon. We'll notify you when we go live, because we go live for all of our interviews. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Adam's website and Instagram are in the show notes below, so you could follow him. And just thanks again, Adam. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure, Tammy, and thank you to all our supporters in America. Without you, I wouldn't have a career. So I have America to really thank for supporting my work. Thank you.
We love your stories, so keep them coming. We're ready. And remember, everybody, life's a beautiful tapestry that needs to be experienced. Have a good night.